Welcome back. I'm going to show you today how to identify intervals. I know we've talked about this a little bit, but we've done a lot of writing of them, especially the more complicated ones, the dissonant intervals, augmented, and diminished. So I wanted to show you just kind of how to go about this when you are faced with an interval, how to decide what interval it is. It's kind of a step-by-step process, so it's important that you understand these steps in order, that you know what to do and not to leave any steps out, because if you do, then you won't end up with the right answer. So what I recommend to you right now is to get a piece of staff paper out and a piece of regular paper, or you can write this on the staff paper too. And on the piece of regular paper, write out the steps in the order that we do them. And then on the staff paper, I recommend that you go ahead and write along with me as I'm speaking. So I'm going to show you what's on the computer screen because I have kind of a limited technology right now. So I'm going to show you what's on the computer screen. I won't be able to actually write down all of the notes that I'm telling you. So I'm going to tell you step by step how I think about stuff. But it might be useful for you to actually go through and do it on staff paper as well. And when you're doing the assignment, and that is all going to be all of identifying intervals of all types. When you're doing the assignment, what I'd like you to do is have staff paper alongside you and go through these steps, because it's hard to do so many steps in your head at one time. And it's a place where people usually make mistakes, is when they're trying to do too many steps at once. So go ahead and do step by step on your staff paper before you try to get the answer, and that will make things a lot easier and you'll be a lot more accurate with it. This might take a little time at first. You might find yourself thinking that you're incredibly slow. That's totally fine. This is new stuff, so you should not try to go too quickly on it. Make sure that you're accurate. That's the most important thing first. And then as you practice accuracy, you will find yourself getting quicker, just because some of the steps will become more like second nature. But right now you really will need to think through it in a systematic way. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and look. I'm going to go ahead and show you what the actual assignment is for this week, and we'll go through some of them together and I'll just walk you through that. So let's see. Let's go to this. Here's our assignment for this week. And so you'll see that you have many interval options. And actually what I did was I went into this musictheory.net exercise customizer, and I told them to give you every interval that they would allow on the program. So you've got a lot of options, but don't let that scare you. It's actually pretty easy to narrow them down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the two notes I have. This is a melodic interval, not a harmonic interval, because the notes are beside each other like a melody. So I'm going to look, and first I'm going to narrow it down by number. I'm going to figure out what number interval I have. So I have an A to a D sharp. Okay, so A is 1, B 2, C 3, D 4. So this is a fourth. So I know it's going to be something from this column here. I'm going to have one of these fourths is true. Now the next, that's step 1, fourth. Now I have it narrowed down. Step 2 is I'm going to find out if this interval is a perfect interval. Okay, if it was a second, third, sixth, or seventh, I would find out if it was major, because that's how we figure intervals, is by looking at the major or the perfect form and then kind of going from there. When we write intervals, that's how we do it. So let's think about identifying them the same way. So I'm going to look at my bottom note. Remember, the bottom note is the note that we use to figure out what kind of scale we're thinking about. Okay, so if I'm going to figure out a perfect fourth, I'm going to think about the A major scale. So my question is D sharp in the A major scale? Well, A major has 3 sharps, but D sharp is not one of those sharps. It's F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. Okay, so if I had A to D, it would be a perfect fourth. Still with me? A to D natural would be a perfect fourth. So what I would do is I would write that down on your paper. Write an A to a D natural, and then underneath it label P4. That way you won't forget that step when you go into the next thing. Okay, then I'm going to flip the camera around again so you can see me more. This is what I do in this instance. I literally do this with my hands. So I kind of showed you before in the dot cam with my fingers, but I actually use my hands and I do this. So if A to D is a perfect fourth, but that's not what I have. I have an A to a D sharp. So the higher number is actually, or sorry, the higher note, what am I talking about? The higher note is actually up a half step. So the space between my hands just got bigger. The space of my interval is bigger. So I have A to D, A to D sharp is a bigger interval. So what happens when we turn a perfect interval into, if we make a perfect interval a half step bigger, it becomes augmented. So A to D sharp is an augmented fourth. So let's go back and look again at, boy, I'm having issues. Okay, there we go. So going back to look at this, A to D sharp, I've said is an augmented fourth. A to D natural is perfect. A to D sharp is a half step bigger than perfect, so it's augmented. So I'm going to go ahead and choose augmented fourth. There it was. Okay. So that's how we go through it. Let's try this next one. First thing, find the number. 1, 2, 3. This is a third, so I'm going to look at these columns. I have more options because thirds could be major or minor, or augmented or diminished. Okay, so I'm going to look at the bottom note and think about the major scale of the bottom note, because what I want to do first is find what a major third would be, and then I can see how it's been adjusted from that. Or maybe I'll get lucky and it's already a major third and I don't have to do that extra step. But let's see, if I'm thinking about the major scale of A flat major has 4 flats. Yeah, that's right. Okay, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. Okay, well this is an A flat. This note up here is a C flat. See how the ledger lines keep going? So if I started at the top line of the staff on F, G, A flat, B, C flat. So this second line is a C. Okay, well C flat wasn't one of the flats I said in A flat major. So I know that this is not a major third. Okay, so I can eliminate that. What I need to find out is it bigger or smaller than a major third? So going back to the hands, A flat to C is major. But I don't have C, I have C flat, which is lower, so my top hand is going to move down. So A flat to C flat is a half step smaller than a major third, so that makes it a minor third. Oh, and I should have mentioned that that is a harmonic interval because the notes are played at the same time. Okay, so this is how you go about it. Oh, this is a good one. Let's do this one last. This will be our last one that we do, but I want to walk you through this because this is one, a very interesting special case. I think I mentioned this on one of the videos before, but I wanted to actually show you again how to do this. You'll definitely need staff paper for this one. Okay, so this interval, first step, find out the number. So F1, G2, A3, B4, C5, D6. This is a sixth, some kind of sixth. So next step is I'm going to determine what kind of sixth, like where the major sixth is. To do that, I look at the bottom note and I would think about the major scale of the bottom note. But there's a problem here because F flat is not a major scale. You can have an F flat note, but there's no key signature for F flat major. We just don't use that key. It would be 8 flats, and we don't go past 7 because then we start repeating flats and getting double flats, and it's really strange. So there's no key of F flat. So now what do I do? Because that's my step, right? So what I recommend is what's called the cover-up method. I'm going to cover up the flat. I can't do it because my mouse isn't big enough, but I literally will put my hand on the screen and cover up the flat. And I'm just going to work with F first. Okay, this is a little more complicated, so you're going to need to write it down on staff paper. What I would do is, first of all, write this interval down, because you know that's the one you're going to work with. So go ahead and do that. Then, and I'm going to keep talking quickly, so you can pause me if you need to. It's the beauty of a video. Okay, so now you have this written down. Yeah. Next thing you're going to do is just beside it, draw an F, natural, like no flat. And then we're going to determine what kind of interval we can get from F. And at the end, we're going to go ahead and add the flat back on, and I'll show you what I mean. It's hard for me kind of to describe this without actually writing it down on staff paper. Like I said, I did this on another video, but just to clarify, I need you to write it down on staff paper so that you can see it, because it's really hard for me to explain it. Okay, so if we have an F natural, what kind of D would make a major sixth above F natural? Well, if we think about the key of F, we have one flat, it's B flat, so D is natural in the key of F. So F to D is a major sixth. Okay, that's good. So write that down. Write an F to a D and underneath label it major sixth. Now, we need to somehow figure out how that relates to what we have right now. So I'm going to do the thing with my hands again. So if I have F natural to D natural is a major sixth. I don't have an F natural, I have an F flat. That's a half step lower. But also I don't have a D natural either, I have a D flat. That's also a half step lower. So what has happened is that both of my hands are a half step lower than what I have written on the paper. So they're moving together and the space between them hasn't actually changed. They're both down a half step. So that's one way to think about it, okay? So you can look at this and you can say, because the space between these notes is the same as the space between F and D, I know that it's the same interval as between F and D, so it's going to be a major sixth. There's another way you can think about it too, because sometimes it doesn't work out that nicely. Another way you can think about it is you have F to D is your major sixth. You can still keep the F flat covered up. You can still work from F, and you can say, I don't have an F to D, I have a D flat. So F to D is a major sixth. F to D flat is smaller. That makes it a minor sixth. So you can write that down on your paper. Write an F to a D flat and underneath label it minor sixth. Okay? Now, what you're going to do is you're going to then, because your top note is correct, you're going to go back and readjust your bottom note. Okay? You have to get to that F flat. So if F to D flat we've determined is a minor sixth, we need F flat to D flat. So what happens is our bottom note moves down a half step. What does that do to our interval? Is it bigger or smaller? It's bigger, right. So F to D flat is minor. F flat to D flat is a half step bigger. So if you think about that little chart where I wrote, you know, diminished, minor, major, augmented, that one shows that a minor interval is a half step smaller than a major interval, which we know, right? So if you're starting with a minor sixth and then you make it a half step bigger, it becomes a major sixth. So that's a second way to get at the same issue that we have. And we still figured it with F, but it was a lot easier than trying to think about F flat and what's going on with that, because it's just really difficult if you don't have a major scale associated with it. So you do run into these from time to time. So what happens here is we've decided that it's a major sixth, and we did it two ways, so we double checked ourselves. If I got a different answer in the second one, then I probably would have needed to go back and start over and try it again. So like I said, this is kind of time consuming. Like this is now a 13-minute video and we've done about 3 of them, but that's okay. It's better to go through it very systematically so that you understand the steps and so that you're very comfortable with it. That way when you get to the test, it won't be so difficult. So we're going to choose major sixth, see if that's right. And it is. So there you go. All right, this is how you do this. The homework does allow you to do a lot of options, like you get a lot of chances, because like I like to, you know, not just make it a percentage but give you a chance to get a lot of correct answers. So I will ask you to do a lot of correct answers, but what I want you to do is not just to skip over the ones that look hard. I don't want you to skip any. Like it shows me if you skip them, and I don't want you to skip them. I want you to try. Even if you get it wrong, I want you to at least try it and work through it, because going through that process, systematic step-by-step process, is what's going to actually help you learn this. So you can sit here in the video and be like, yeah, that makes sense, but until you actually do it yourself, it doesn't actually click. So that's why I'm going to assign you this, and I want you to really work through the hard ones and don't just like skip over to the easy ones, because you can do the easy ones. That's not what I have concerns with. I want to make sure you can do the hard ones too. So, All right, so this is basically how you do this. Feel free to do more on the homework than you're required to if you find that it's helpful for you. Feel free to go back to these assignments later on also and to study for the test and to prepare. It's a good way to do that, to get ready. So yeah, there we go. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys are having a good time, and I'll see you later.